Hi everyone, how's it going? My name is Sergio and welcome to a new Anima2D tutorial. In today's tutorial, we will be doing the walking animation or the walk cycle. Now today's tutorial is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to go so in depth on how to animate the bones themselves, since we already saw that we saw how to do that in the first episode and everything is pretty self-explanatory. But the first thing that I want to do is to change the layout and to make it more easy for me to animate this. So the first thing I want to do is to select the default 2x3 layout, and then I'm going to move the hierarchy to the left. I'm going to merge the game with the scene tab, move the project down with the hierarchy, and let me make the inspector a little bit thinner and the project tab a little bit bigger maybe. And also I'm gonna click on window and open the animation window, and then I'm gonna tab the dock that beneath the game view, as well as the animator window, which I'm gonna put with the animation window. And this is the setup I like to use. Now everything is as it was from the last episode, only right now I've added a floor, which will allow us to know where we should position the foot of the player whenever, or the character whenever we're animating the walk cycle. And the way I did the floor, it was very simple. In the sprites folder, there's a square sprite that you can create by right clicking, create sprites and square, and I just called it floor. Then I placed it in the hierarchy over here in the scene view, and I just made it big, and I've put it right underneath the player. Everything else is the same as it was. Of course, you will be able to find the package that I've put together for you guys today in the description below, as well as a playlist with all the videos for this animation series so far. If you haven't seen the first episode, I strongly recommend you do, because I'm not going to be explaining everything. So the first thing I have over here is I have my prefab of the character. This one can be found in the prefabs folder. Something I forgot to mention before doing the tutorial is that you can change the size of the IK gizmos here. So by default they're probably going to be like this big for you. If you want to change that, you can do that really quickly by tapping on the gizmos tab here and then just bringing down the 3D icon slider to make them smaller, and this will probably make it easier for you to animate. And the first problem that we have before we start animating is that we can't move the bones at the feet. Now this is a big issue, because whenever you're walking, the foot should be either pointing up or pointing down, depending at what point we are in the walk cycle. To fix this issue, one way would be to turn off the IKs and then we can move it around, but when animating that's going to be too slow. So I use the IK CC to limb, which allows you to select how many bones you want and only animate the foot. To create it, we're gonna create a child game object of the right leg IK. So create empty with the right leg IK selected, and let's call it right foot IK. I'm gonna add a component and type IK, and we're gonna choose IK CC_D2D. The difference between this one and the IK that we have on the limb is that this one supports more than 2 bones and has different features. However, it doesn't behave like the IKs for the legs, so this IK is not suitable for arms or legs. I went over how the other IKs work in my Anima2D basics, so if you want to learn more about that, I recommend you check it out. And to make this work, we're gonna need to drag the right foot over to the target bone, and we're gonna set the new num bones, the number of bones slider, to 1. The IK will turn green, and now we have control of the foot as well as the right leg. You may be asking yourself why I put the right foot IK as a child of the right leg IK. That's because whenever you're moving the leg around, that IK is gonna follow. So you have the ability to make the foot stand on like that, and you're not constantly having to move the 2 IKs around. So let's do the same thing for the left leg IK. So I'm gonna duplicate the IK we just created. I'm gonna call it left foot IK, and I'm gonna change the position to the tip of the left foot and change the target to the left foot, and there you go. So the workflow I usually follow whenever I'm doing walking or running animations is I find a reference image which has the different key positions that we want our character to be in, and then I duplicate those poses along the timeline. The one I'm using today, I have it in my other screen, and it's by angryanimator.com. I'll leave the link in the description, so if you want to check that out and use the same one I did, you can go ahead and do that. But before we start, let's save the scene and apply the changes to the character prefab. Let's jump onto the animation window and let's create a new clip. Let's call this walk. And now we can start animating. But first, I want to show you how you can use one of the other features of Anima2D that I haven't mentioned yet in my tutorials, and that is onion skin. If you're familiar with animation, you probably have heard of onion skinning before. Also, if you have used any other like pixel drawing program, so if you have ever created a sprite or some kind of sprite animation or stuff like that, you have probably heard of this. But basically what onion skinning allows you to do is to see in other colors where the player or the character that you're animating was in the frames before and after. That way you will know the type of movement that the character is. To activate it, let's click onto Window, Anima2D, and Onion Skin. This will open this new tab, and I'm gonna dock it below the inspector. To use the onion skin, all we have to do is just make sure the activate tick is on, and we're gonna change the step to something like 5 and the frames to 20. The frames is simply how many frames of your animation you want it to count. The step is how many colors, different colors or different layers of onion skinning you want the onion skin to do, and the alpha is how much alpha you want on those colors. But now that we have set this up, we are ready to start animating. So I see that the right arm in this position is right over here, but under the body, and then we have the left arm that is coming up like this. We have the left leg, which is gonna be on the back over here, and the tip of the foot is touching the ground. Then we have, however, let me see, because there you go, the knee should be slightly bent. And then the right leg is gonna be a little bit forwards, and the right foot is gonna be upwards like that. I don't actually like the position that we're in at the moment, so I'm gonna move the floor up a little bit. So let's go over here to the floor. I'm gonna move it over here. There you go, that's better. Jump back to the walk animation, and we can move to the 5th frame and start making the 2nd position in the walk cycle. So in this position, this is the recoil position. The character is going to be a little bit lower, so we're going to move the hip bone to -0.9, for example. Yeah, that looks good. We're going to have the right arm a little bit more like that on the back, and the left arm is going to be slightly moved. I'm going to move it over here to the front. It really doesn't change a lot. Then we also have the left leg, which is coming up over here, should be almost at a 90-degree angle, and let's move the tip of the foot like that so it feels natural. And then let's move the foot down like that and move the right leg slightly back. Now let's jump onto the 10th frame and let's reset the hip position, because now the character is going up again. So I'm just gonna copy over here the hip position frame that I have at 0, and move it to the 10th frame. Just copy and paste. And now I want to move the left leg forwards like so. The foot, I'm gonna move it slightly forwards too, and then the right leg is gonna be passing like so, almost straight. Let's check how that looks. Okay, now let's move the arms. They're gonna be somewhere over here, just like pretty much laying down. So now let's move on to the high point. So in this position, the player is going to be at his highest point. So since we made the position at the beginning, since we made the recoil 0.9, it makes sense that we're gonna make this like 0.84. So it moves up a little bit. And here the left leg is gonna be at its highest point, forwards, like so. And then the right leg is going to be moving back with the tip of the foot touching the ground. We're going to have the left arm coming back like so, and the right arm like this. So we can move on to the 20th frame, and this is the contact position again. So from this point on, this is the same 4 frames that we have made, only that now instead of the left leg being on back here, is going to be the right leg. So I'm going to recreate the contact position inverted so that our left arm it's on the back here and the right arm it's moving up, and then the left leg is gonna come down here, and now we're touching the ground. Let's move the foot upwards, and the right leg is going to be more like somewhere over here. And that is not looking too bad. See, you can see that the onion skin now works again. I mean, it just kind of comes and goes sometimes. So from this point on, we're gonna be following the same method we just did, just trying to imitate the best we can the positions of the walk cycle. Only this time it's going to be inverted, so I'm going to fast forward this. Now the only thing I want to mention before I put it in fast forward is you can use the hip positions in the previous frames onto your next frame. So for example, this is the recoil position, and this is going to be the recoil again. So we're simply going to copy the hip position keyframe, and we're going to paste it again. That way we don't have to mess with the numbers anymore, or we don't have to remember at which position did we put the hips. So let's just follow as we did the same method and everything, and I'll come back in a few seconds. Awesome. So as you can see, I finished my animation. It looks quite well. Doesn't look too bad. Now, there's a few things you might want to retouch after this. Of course, this is an animation walk cycle that is from a reference, so that's not going to apply to all the characters. And if we want to give our character a little bit more life, we may want to maybe, rotate the bones of the body a little bit so that it goes like that maybe. And then we bring it back some, like so. Just move the torso around a little bit to create more life so that it doesn't look like he's just a chopstick or something that it's walking. But that was just to illustrate that you should play around with the animation you've created. Once you have these keyframes, these base positions, you should play around with them and give your character some more personality. So after we're done with our animation, we can go ahead and save the scene, and we're gonna bake the animation. Now with the idle animation, we didn't duplicate it beforehand because it's such a simple animation that it really wasn't worth it, but today I do want to do it. So basically the concept here is that we're gonna duplicate this clip so that after we bake it, we can always go back and just change the other clips eye-case positions without having the 300 keyframes here in the screen, which is going to be really messy. However, keep in mind that you will have to rebake the animation and then change the clips in the animator itself, because the changes will not apply automatically. So I'm going to duplicate this walk, and I'm going to call this walk pre, and I'm going to create a new folder which is going to be called pre-bake, in which I'm going to put all of the clips that I've duplicated. And then now that we're on this walk again, we can now go ahead and bake it. So window, Anima2D, and bake animation, and it's exactly the same process as we did in the other tutorial. So now we can disable the IKs, and let's check out the animation, and it doesn't look too bad. I mean, he's walking. That's pretty good. Now you probably saw some issues whenever it's changing from the back to the front, like from the end to the beginning of the animation. It kind of struggles a little bit there, but that is something you can fix on your animation. Whenever you're practicing this, you have to try to make it flow as best as you can. Of course, I only made this for the tutorial, so I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on it. So the last thing before I go is we need to check in the animator if the walk clip has been added, because later in the tutorial series I'm gonna be teaching you how you can put all of these animations together and use blending trees and a character controller and make the character actually move around as if you were to use it for a game. So that was it for today's tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.